Hello guys, so in the previous video we learned how we can delete a single row from the SQLite database, and today we're going to learn how we can delete multiple rows, of course given the IDs of those rows. So I'm just going to define a function here that can be used to delete multiple countries, and I'm just going to call it func delete many. Of course, I'm going to reference the database. Then we have SQLite DB, and then what I'm going to pass here is going to be a list of IDs because they're going to be integers. And then what I'm going to return is the number of rows that have been affected. And then I'm going to also return an error if there is any error, of course, for handling the errors in front. The first thing we have to make sure is that if the length of these IDs is going to be 0, we're going to return the number of rows affected to be 0. Okay, so just going to say if length of IDs equals to 0, I'm just going to return 0 and nil because there are no IDs that have been provided. Then once we have provided them, we have to create a list of placeholders for the number of these when you're making queries and we're passing variables like ID to access them. In this query we have to pass this question mark, so we have to create a list of question mark depending on the number of IDs that are going to provide here. I'm just going to call it placeholders. This is going to hold. I'm just going to use make, then of course it's going to be a string, and then it's going to be based on the length of the IDs. Now this one is going to be dynamic, so that if I pass more IDs, it's going to make depending on the length of those IDs. And then after doing that, I'm just going to define another variable. In this case, I'm just going to use any, and then I'm just going to pass length of IDs as well. And then I'm going to do a loop. I'm going to loop through these IDs. I'm going to loop through these IDs. I can just say this is going to be ID, and then you apply the index. I'm just going to say placeholders, of course, for the question marks. So that you can be able to capture these details as they are being supplied in the front end, or in the where we're calling this code. So we're going to loop through these IDs, and then this is going to help us when we are creating our query. Okay, because if you supply more of these question marks and less of the variables, it's going to be a problem. So you have to ensure that you're supplying the right number of then from there we can supply our query, and in this case, since we're going to combine with the length, I'm just going to use fmt .sprintf, of course, for combining and for formatting strings. In this case, I'm going to say delete from countries. Countries is the database name, where ID in, then I'm going to supply the list of IDs, of course, and then in this case I'm going to join them. I'm just going to use string join, and I'm going to check the placeholders, and I'm going to supply that. Okay, we're deleting and if the list of IDs are in these placeholders that we're providing them, they're going to be deleted, okay, from the table. And then we're going to have a result. Okay, and then our error, and then we're going to execute this query. So db.execute query. Okay, and then we're going to supply the arguments. Okay, and then we're going to handle the error. If error not equal to nil, I'm going to return 0, and I'm going to return error. That means there's an error. Otherwise, we're going to return result dot rows. So this is basically our function, and then now we're going to use this function here. As you can see, we are inserting this. I'm just going to supply the list of IDs, and then what we're going to do here is I'm going to just call the function. Of course, we are returning the number of rows that are affected along with an error. I'm just going to say utils delete many. Now I need to supply the DB with the list of IDs, so I have to define a variable up here. I'm just going to call it IDs because it is integers. In my case, I have 1, 2, 3, so I'm just going to say maybe 1 and 2. I want to delete 1 and 2. Then I have to capture the error, of course, and then we're going to just print it out. And then finally, what we're going to do is I want to ensure that to confirm that it's been deleted. So what I'm going to do, I'm just going to fetch the country. See, country, and of course error. To confirm that it has been deleted, you can say utils find by ID, and then I'm going to supply the DB. Then I'm going to supply the DB of an ID of 1. Okay, this of course is going to return the ID, and of course I've deleted it up here there, but I have to confirm that it's been successfully deleted. And then I'm going to print out the error. And then what we're going to do is you can print the name of the country and say country name. Okay, and you also have to use this one. We can maybe say, what can we say? Okay, to confirm that it's been deleted, I can just say fmt printf. And I can say rows, something like that, rows deleted. Then I'm going to just capture this. Okay, currently there's no database here, and then we can run this up. Yes, you can see countries have been set, 2 rows deleted, no country with ID 1. Okay, can maybe move this to the next line. Say that, and now I have to delete this database. Then I can run this again. Then you can see 2 rows deleted, of course, with ID 1 and 2, and then we try to get the country for ID 1, saying that no country with ID 1 because we have already deleted. So guys, that's how you delete multiple rows in an SQLite database, and see you in the next video.